Enoch, Enoch, be not afraid. God wants us to take you to heaven. Am I dead? No. Heat, 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 heat. Enoch, from now on you will have a new name, Metatron. You are watching the Bible Witness. This morning, when I was asleep, I heard a call that pierced the silence and woke me instantly. Enoch. I jolted upright, a paralyzing dread gripping my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs, and my breath caught tight in my throat. I stared into the dimly lit room, unable to speak, unable to move. Two radiant figures, colossal and silent, stood right before my eyes. They were clad in light I could not define, and their presence filled the air with an electric hum. Enoch, be not afraid. God wants us to take you to heaven. Am I dead? No. God wants us to show you 10 levels of heavens and will bring you back. The tension that had paralyzed me suddenly broke. I let go of the breath I hadn't known I'd been holding. My shoulders dropped, and something deep within me, the fear of finality, eased. I found a flicker of my earthly self. Remember to take me home before lunch. Okay. Then our journey begins. A sudden, powerful wind, yet gentle against my skin, whispered as we began our vertical ascent into the morning sky. The angels grasped me firmly, their touch solid yet weightless. I looked up, following their gaze toward a brightness that resonated like a silent vibration, seeming to call my name. Below us, clouds stretched endlessly, transforming the world into a vast, soft ocean beneath the sky above. Fading stars still lingered, suspended in the deep blue, balanced precariously between heaven and earth. I felt the powerful, contradictory pull of both, the familiar, fading weight of the world below and the overwhelming mystery ahead. Earth had already shrunk into a fragile globe, turning silently far behind us. We were beyond its reach now, drifting through the tranquil, echoing realm of stars. The angels held me as if I were sacred, precious cargo, and I looked up, my mortal mind wondering if even the heavens had a limit, a ceiling to their structure. Then light, sharper than any terrestrial sun, struck my face so fiercely that I gasped aloud. Whatever mundane belief I had held about the universe, this moment utterly shattered and remade it in a single, breathtaking flash of revelation. There it was, the very entrance to the upper spheres. It appeared as a swirling, tumultuous mass like a black, churning sea. Yet, paradoxically, deep inside that darkness, a brilliant ocean glistened beneath a cerulean sky. Clouds circled the edges like a massive, swirling crown. This was no terrifying abyss, however. This was a majestic, celestial gate. We soared above an endless sea, the upper waters, hemmed by pristine white clouds and crowned at the farthest edge by colossal angelic statues carved from pale, crystalline granite. I felt small, an insignificant mortal, yet somehow profoundly chosen as a guest in this ultimate realm of the divine. This is the upper water, separated from the earthly water by God himself. This water is prepared for the great flood. What great flood? He smiled then, a slow, enigmatic curve of the lips that held secrets spanning millennia. I understood instantly that there were cosmic truths that should, for the time being, be kept from the earthbound. As we traveled, a castle materialized through the high clouds, white granite spires and towering arches rising like a song frozen in stone. Beneath its feet, the celestial ocean glimmered through breaks in the swirling mist. Inside, within a vast, echoing hall of clouds and white granite, 12 elders in flowing, luminous white sat on thrones carved from immense stones. They raised their arms, giving commands that were not spoken but vibrated through reality. The distant stars responded, pulsing and shifting in synchronized harmony. I realized with staggering awe that these beings were not merely watching the cosmos. They were steering the sky itself. Then the angels brought me to another room, a massive chamber where stored snow lashed the vast space like a perpetual, contained storm. In the center, a huge mound of glimmering crystal and ice pulsed with powerful, refracted light. This was a cosmic vault, the very source from which all terrestrial snow and frost would descend to the world below. Next, a new chamber opened into a realm defined by mist. Clouds, both blindingly light and heavy with gathering darkness, gathered at our feet, spilling over the floor and drifting through towering columns of polished glass. Here, the clouds were kept, awaiting their designated time to roll across the face of the earth. The third room breathed with heavy vapor. Golden cauldrons bubbled silently with mist, white, sweet-smelling smoke trailing upward and pooling across the thick, fog-covered floor. This was the treasure of dew, the place where morning's breath is born and waits to descend upon the sleeping world. Let's go to the second level, shall we? We stood together, the angels and I, gazing into a world utterly robbed of light, a realm cloaked in perpetual spiritual gloom. Snow coated the ground, yet it offered no sense of purity. It was heavy, stained by ancient sorrow. Everything here had the tangible weight of despair, of agonizing judgment. Then I saw them. Hundreds of beings, once majestic, now tragically brought low. Their powerful wings were black as perpetual dusk. Their garments were soaked, bound tight in thorny vines that pulsed with a faint, chilling red light. They knelt, frozen and motionless, covered in a relentless, unforgiving frost. This was exile, a fate worse than any death I could conceive. Who are those poor angels? These are those who turned away from the Lord, who did not obey the Lord's commandments, but of their own will plotted together and turned away with their prince and with those who are under restraint in the fifth heaven. A sudden, faint chorus of voices rose from the frozen ground, spectral and desperate. Man of God, pray for us to the Lord. Who am I? A mortal man that I should pray for angels? I'm sorry. I have no power here. Let's get out of this land. The third heaven is waiting. We walked swiftly away. I didn't look back, though the image, the sheer, crushing weight of their despair, stayed with me. Behind us, the silent storm of judgment continued. Ahead, the path rose again into the light. Heaven, I was learning, was no single state of being. It was glory, yes, but also profound grief, order, and eternal consequence. The gloom finally lifted. We soared above the low clouds into a land so intensely radiant it felt like waking from a long, troubled darkness. Below us, white, luminous trees gleamed. Birds wheeled in vast, joyful flocks, and golden light spilled across flowers and grass of an unnatural emerald hue. I stood on the ground of this world, letting its unearthly colors flood into my eyes and heal the desolation of the second heaven. I faced a land where sorrow had no echo, where pain held no memory. For a moment, I could not speak, for my eyes were too busy drinking in the overwhelming, perfect view. This is Eden, where the righteous dwell when they die, the land of eternal youth, far from aging, and the land of eternal happiness. Look, this is the tree of life standing at the center of Eden. Everyone came from the tree, but not everyone came back to it. I gazed upward, awe and understanding flooding my face. For the first time since the journey began, I felt not overwhelmed by scale, but profoundly welcome, as if all the heavens had conspired not to dazzle me with their power, but to remind me of pure, untainted joy. But Eden is just one part of the third heaven. In the same floor of the third heaven there is another place. We hovered above a great divide, a vast chasm carved brutally into the very fabric of paradise itself. One side, where we stood, flourished with white forests and clear, singing streams. The other side was scorched, volcanic, and utterly lifeless. We descended slowly into the darkness of the chasm. The songs of birds and the rustle of golden leaves were gone. Here the land bled a perpetual molten pain. Lava carved violent paths through black, tortured earth. Ash choked the air, and broken ruins whispered of a terrible beauty lost to time and dreadful choice. This was a memory of heaven defiled by self-will. Welcome to so-called hell. I saw lakes of churning lava stretched before us, thick with the stench of despair and burning sulfur. Thousands of figures waited, waist-deep in the scorching heat, screaming, pleading, their eyes wild with relentless torment. This was the place of the unrepentant sinners, guarded by terrifying angels. These monstrous figures were cloaked and faceless, save for a single brutal eye that cast a searing beam of light across the landscape. Here, the unique pain came from knowing exactly why you were here, the precise nature of the transgression being eternally punished. This place is for murderers, thieves, betrayers, those who worship other gods, practitioners of divinations, witches, adulterers, hookers, panders, and every sin in the world. I could not move. My heart thundered with a fear of justice that was too sharp, too precise, too perfectly aligned with the moral order of the cosmos. My breath caught, and I felt for the first time what it meant to tremble before the absolute law. Let's move on to the fourth heaven. We arrived in the fourth heaven, and immediately, all traces of the gloom and suffering vanished. Clouds stretched below us, impossibly dense and still, like a sea of polished white marble. Before me stood two colossal towers, one glowing with incandescent gold, the other radiating a soft, celestial blue. They rose above the cloud sea like monuments to time itself. Inside the golden-lit tower, I saw it. A radiant orb, the sun, paused mid-breath. Here I understood that the sun did not die each night. It simply returned to this chamber, to wait, to replenish its impossible energy. In another room within the tower, enclosed in an iron cage of profound age, was a bird of pure, concentrated light. Its long golden tail shimmered like the first light of dawn. It did not sing, but waited, still and solemn. My guide whispered that it would soon be sent forth to scatter its light and the morning dew across the worlds below. A weightless kind of awe descended upon me. This place was not meant for human eyes. No prophet could adequately describe it. No painter could capture its functional, sublime purpose. Then we crossed into the other tower, the twin. And there I beheld a second orb, the moon, serene and glowing with a quiet, meditative blue. The moon was not merely the absence of the sun. It was the companion of its pause, the keeper of the night's rhythm. The angels then took me to the outside, to the eastern edge of the world. Far across the clouds, I saw a majestic gate, high and arched, carved from white granite and glowing softly with the concentrated last light of the retiring sun. Constellations were etched across its curve. This, my guide said, was where the sun would rise, the eastern gate, the beginning of all mornings. And on the other side of the world, under the moon's tender, vigilant gaze, was the twin gate, adorned with ethereal moonlight and polished stars. This was the western gate, where the moon would enter as the day gave way to night. They were not final doors, but vast rhythmic entrances, ensuring the continuous cycle of time. Let's move on to the fifth heaven. The fifth heaven was immediately hotter than the sun's own room. A dry, sterile, inescapable heat that permeated the very air. As the wind pulled away the choking veil of sand, I saw them. A legion of armored beings stood motionless in formation. Their black capes were stiffened by centuries of dust and heat. The sterile desert clung to them like iron filings. They did not move, did not speak. Their silence was louder, heavier than battle drums. Who are they? The Grigori, Satanale followers, those who turn away from God. Accomplices of those under restraint on the second floor. Satanale? Who is Satan? The traitor on the second day of creation. And then I saw it. My mouth hung open again, but no sound came. A massive figure, impossibly huge, kneeling in the heart of the storm. His wings unfurled like broken monuments of black stone. He was horned, bowed, and glowing faintly with eyes that burned a malevolent, pulsing red through the dust storm. The traitor himself. Satan. That's enough for the fifth floor. We rose quickly above the scorched sands, and I looked back. The Black Army was still there, a monument of frozen will, destined to remain in that fierce silence forever. In the sixth heaven, the atmosphere shifted drastically. I saw two colossal statues, their immense wings spread wide, forming a divine arch above us. The sky behind them radiated with a kind of pure, soul-reaching light. Beneath them, clouds lay thick and soft, like a protective blanket draped over the earth far below. Welcome to the heaven of the archangels. I stood there, my body too stunned, too small to move. I had seen the heights of the heavens before, but this was something entirely different. A place of governance, refinement, and staggering power. I saw the archangels themselves. They soared through the vast skies, their robes flowing like ribbons of pure energy. I knew I was in a place that was not meant for human occupation, a space too pure, too precisely tuned for the eyes of the living. Then 3 distinct archangels appeared before us. Their bodies were suspended in midair, their white robes glowing softly in the radiant light. The 2 angels who had guided me since Earth bowed their heads, their hands resting gently on their chests, a profound gesture of reverence. They had guided me this far, but now it was time for me to walk with a higher authority. My name is Gabriel. Come, Enoch, let's take a trip around this place. We stepped into the first chamber, and my eyes widened immediately. I saw the entire solar system, planets spinning silently in perfect, intricate motion, their movements graceful yet deliberately governed. The archangels here watched the display and commanded its flow. It felt incredibly alive, as if the universe itself had been scaled down to this delicate, intricate dance. In this room, we examine and govern the moving of the planets. The archangels who are doing this job are the masters of astrology, the governors of celestial order. In another room, archangels were scattering glistening white snow from small cloth bags over an intricate, scaled landscape of Earth. In this room, we examine and govern the seasons. The seasons, I realized, were not mere happenstance or random fluctuations. They were meticulously managed, governed by beings who understood the very essence of time and change. We moved to a third room, where archangels stood immersed in a colossal ocean, guiding the water with movements of their hands, controlling the very flow of rivers and currents. The waves, gentle and calm, bent instantly to their will. And in this room we examine and govern the oceans and rivers. It is not just water we govern, but the very essence of life, the natural forces that shape everything on Earth. This is incredible, I whispered. But the next room is the most important of all. In this room we examine human beings. Everything they do in every corner of the world is observed here. I saw thousands of flickering images of life below. We saw them all, but the archangel's tone shifted. We don't govern them, not like the planets or the seasons or the ocean. God gives humans free will. A strange, cold unease crept into my heart. The truth hit me hard. Humanity was not just part of the natural order. We were being monitored, analyzed, and studied by those who had the power to shape the very universe, yet they refrained from interfering with our deepest choices. Then we write down everything and send the reports to God. He's the only one who has the right to judge. At that terrifying moment, I realized the shocking truth. The weight of our actions, our decisions, our entire lives. All of it was being watched, recorded, tallied. God truly knew everything about us. Let's go to the next level. In the 7th heaven, I saw a vast legion of heavenly warriors standing upon countless layers of cloud, like divine, armored terraces stretching to infinity. They wore radiant white armor and bore spears as tall as themselves, glowing with latent power. Among them were their leaders, cloaked not merely in greater armor or rank, but in a majesty that made the clouds beneath their feet seem to kneel in obedience. Their eyes shone with the ancient wisdom of battles not of this world. Then, above all, their highest leader, the right hand of God, Michael the Archangel. His golden hair danced in the eternal wind, and his gaze pierced through me, assessing my very soul. I had read his name in sacred texts. Now I stood beneath his monumental shadow. When I reached the 8th heaven, I saw the foundations of divine command itself. Thrones hovered like blazing altars, pulsing with raw, unyielding authority. Around them spun wheels of fire and eyes, the Ophanim, turning in silent, hypnotic synchrony. Cherubim, radiant and watchful, circled above in sacred duty, maintaining the divine architecture. And beyond them, the seraphim. They burned with an unquenchable flame, 6-winged beings whose every motion was a form of song, their praise of God vibrating through the heavens, sustaining the very structure of glory. And at the 9th heaven, upon a sea of silver cloud, I saw the constellations, not as distant lights, but alive and embodied. It was Leo, the constellation of the leader, proud and regal. In its powerful form, I sensed strength without cruelty, dominion forged in perfect balance. I saw Pisces, twin fish formed of shimmering, liquid light, circling in an endless, graceful dance. They whispered of mystery, of choices made in pairs, of destinies that flowed like intertwining rivers. I saw Libra, a glowing scale rotating gently in the air. It was judgment in perpetual motion, forever watching, forever weighing the actions of the cosmos. My mouth fell open, my knees weakened. I, Enoch of the earth, stood among the stars made flesh, among beings whose constant praise echoed in the architecture of time itself. I was in the ninth heaven, and nothing in me was prepared for the ultimate reality that lay ahead. Are you ready? Ready for what? To meet God. As I reached the final height, the clouds beneath my feet turned into a solid sea of pure, searing light. And before me stood the throne, a radiant, formless being, cloaked in blinding pure light, sat atop it, ungraspable to the mortal eye. The brilliance emanating from him blurred all form and definition, and I knew, with the certainty of absolute truth, this was him. My breath caught. I could feel my face bathed in divine gold. The heat was not burning, but overwhelming in its purity and love. I could no longer feel my physical body, only the trembling, profound awe of being utterly and completely seen. Tears escaped me without command. I, a speck of dust from the earth, dared to behold the center of all creation. I took a step forward. The light surged around me, yet instead of blindness, I felt perfect clarity, a shattering understanding. He welcomed me, and yet I felt as though he watched every atomic inch of my being. I sobbed, not from pain or terror, but from the unbearable beauty and majesty of being in his presence. Did you enjoy your trip through the 10 heavens? I could not speak a single word. My lips moved uselessly, but it was my soul that answered the question, a silent vibration of overwhelming affirmation. The tears kept coming, and I cried freely. No shame in it, for what else can a man do before the Almighty but weep in total surrender? My body lowered on its own. Knees met the glowing cloud floor. Shoulders shivered violently. I bowed, not just in reverence, but in total, final surrender of my will. He watched, silent. And yet that silence thundered with more authority than 1,000 trumpets. I looked up again through tear-filled eyes and found a quiet strength rising in me. Not pride, but obedience. There I stood, utterly alone, yet never abandoned. Surrounded by consuming light, yet never more truly seen. You have a mission to do. Write down everything you have seen and every story you will hear. My body collapsed entirely. I pressed my forehead to the glowing ground. My hands clenched in prayer. I understood now. This was never solely about seeing. It was about remembering and transmitting that memory. Yes, I will do, Lord. I had returned to earth. No longer the same man who once walked the fields, but now a vessel carrying heaven's colossal burden. I started to write as commanded by God. Each stroke of the quill echoed with the voices of angels and the silent songs of the stars. Every parchment became a bridge from the impossible height of heaven to the fragile reality of earth. My hand moved on its own, steady, guided by a memory more divine than mortal. The revelations poured forth like water from a sacred spring. Days bled into weeks. The sun moved across the sky and back again. Yet I remained at that table, captured in a profound silence, lost in a task that no man before me had ever dared undertake. When I had almost finished the entire book, a guest came to me. Suddenly, the door opened with a familiar whisper of air, and I knew Gabriel had returned. I turned, startled. My hand froze in the act of writing. The quill trembled. My heart knew him before my eyes did. He extended his hand in companionship, an invitation more potent than any command. I placed the quill gently down. Heaven was calling again. Together we came back to heaven. Gabriel walked beside me, and I felt whole, complete. My duty on earth had finished. My new duty lay in the divine. Once again, I found myself in the midst of heaven's brilliance. The light gathered at my feet, not as a greeting, but as recognition. I was no longer only a visitor. He waited for me. His gesture was simple, a slight inclination of his presence, yet it moved the very axis of my soul. Gabriel bowed deeply before the throne. I understood that something fundamental was about to change. Gabriel handed me a new, blank scroll and a pen crafted from celestial material. I looked down at it. The feather trembled between my fingers. What more was there to write? What truth could be greater than what I had already been shown? Enoch, I'm listening. From now on you will have a new name. Metatron. Metatron. The pure light fell upon me like a mantle of destiny, burning away the old man. My robe began to change, shimmering, and the winds carried a divine, resonant hum. I felt myself unravel and reweave into something no longer mortal. My eyes could now see things that mortal eyes could never comprehend. My skin shimmered faintly with celestial metal, and within me, a current pulsed with eternal memory, the record of all things. From my back burst forth wings of pure, blinding light, stretching with silent majesty, vast and powerful. I trembled, accepting the change. I was ready. Listen to the first command. From now on, you will no longer be a mortal man. You will sit on the throne with me at the right hand of eternal light. I knelt, one knee pressed to the cloud floor. My hand rested over my transformed heart. The scroll and feather pen now felt like instruments of law, not literature. You will write down everything I command you, everything that happens in the heavens. You will keep all my secrets, things that have never been spoken since the beginning of time. I will remember every word. I vowed, my voice now resonating with a deeper timbre. You will be the greatest of angels, the scribe of the words of the Most High. I stood, my wings unfurled fully, and I held the scroll close to my breast. I was no longer Enoch. I was something the stars themselves had awaited. Metatron, witness, and wordsmith of heaven. I stood alone atop the world, where the heavens kissed the peaks and the clouds drifted like silent witnesses beneath my feet. Light poured from behind me, embracing me not as a man, but as one reborn. I had become the silence that once asked the questions. Somewhere beyond the stories yet unwritten awaited me, and I would bear witness to all. Every line I would write now carried the breath of eternity. And so I stood, no longer merely a man, but the scribe of the divine, alone at the pinnacle of creation, bearing witness to heaven's secrets and cradling eternity in my hands. What if there were a book that claimed original sin never existed and that humanity's corruption was caused by angels? A book that said the great flood wasn't just divine punishment orchestrated to punish sinful humanity, but was, in fact, a means to wipe out a specific, abominable race of towering giants, the Nephilim, who once violently ruled the earth and corrupted its very fabric. And what if this ancient text starkly stated that the Messiah never actually walked among us in human form, and therefore, never died on the cross in a sacrificial act of atonement? If this collection of radical ideas sounds utterly heretical and threatening to established faith, you might be profoundly surprised to learn that this very book was once openly quoted by the apostles themselves and was revered as sacred scripture by early believers during the foundational period of Christianity. This extraordinary text, known as the Book of Enoch, attributed to Enoch, the revered great-grandfather of Noah, claims to reveal profound hidden knowledge and celestial mysteries knowledge that is conspicuously absent from the canonical Bible we know today. Its core themes, spanning cosmic rebellion and apocalyptic judgment, echo powerfully throughout the New Testament, particularly within the epistles of Jude and 2 Peter, and the dramatic vision of Revelation, strongly suggesting that early Christian writers were intimately familiar with and influenced by its contents. Yet, as the institutional church developed, the Roman Church ultimately rejected it and ensured it disappeared from the intellectual and spiritual landscape of mainstream Christianity, managing to survive only in the steadfast preservation of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition. But what truly dangerous secrets does this forbidden, centuries-old book hold, and why was its suppression so crucial to defining orthodoxy? The Book of Enoch is not a single scroll, but a compilation of 5 distinct sections, each dramatically revealing different divine mysteries. These sections are the Book of the Watchers, the Cosmic Rebellion, the Book of Parables, the Pre-existent Messiah, The Book of Dreams, symbolic history, the Epistle of Enoch, the strict final judgment, and the astronomical book, celestial mechanics. Before we dare to uncover the revelations contained within these ancient writings and delve into the abyss of lost theology, don't forget to show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more revelations. Now, let's begin with the Book of the Watchers, arguably the most controversial and disruptive part of Enoch's lost prophecy. The Book of the Watchers begins its narrative with a truly shocking and audacious revelation. It tells the story of 200 powerful angels, known as the Watchers, led by their chief Semyaza, who dramatically descended to earth from the high heavens. Their divine mission was intended merely to watch over and guide humanity, but instead, they succumbed entirely to carnal lust and earthly desire. Driven by forbidden passion, they interbred with human women, an act that was strictly forbidden within the rigid heavenly order and cosmic law. And from this unnatural and catastrophic union were born the Nephilim, terrifying giants of immense size and savage strength, who quickly became ruthless tyrants and warlords, viciously dominating and destroying the earth. This comprehensive and detailed account drastically expands upon a brief, frustratingly cryptic passage found in Genesis 6 verses 1-4, which merely mentions that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and consequently took them as wives, and that from these unions, the Nephilim were subsequently born. But Genesis deliberately leaves a gaping void, failing to explain who exactly these sons of God were, nor fully detailing their ultimate, devastating role in corrupting the entire world. The Book of Enoch decisively fills in these dangerous gaps, presenting a panoramic vision of a dramatic, pre-flood cosmic rebellion that inevitably led to terrestrial chaos and utter destruction. The fallen angels did not merely commit the sin of taking human wives. They also systematically introduced forbidden knowledge and dark secrets to mankind, accelerating the pace of human sin and devastation. According to the Book of Enoch, each of these 200 angels taught specific, dangerous secrets that humans were never meant to possess. Azazel, a figure of immense wickedness, taught men the deadly art of war, instructing them in crafting sophisticated swords, shields, and breastplates, thereby bringing organized warfare and massive bloodshed into the world. Semyaza, the leader, instructed them in sorcery, black magic, and pharmacological secrets, herbology, thus opening the doors to magic, forbidden rituals, and divination. Barakel revealed the hidden mysteries of astrology, the reading of the signs of the sky for nefarious ends. Kokabel taught them the constellations, leading men astray to seek power and divine guidance through the stars themselves rather than through the direct, pure worship of God. Shamsiel unveiled the intricate mysteries of the sun and moon, altering and disrupting the natural, divinely established order. Unfortunately, what was originally intended to be divine, ordered knowledge became perverted into a deadly source of corruption and technological ruin. Instead of enlightenment, this forbidden wisdom brought an epidemic of violence, insatiable greed, and ruthless oppression. The Nephilim ruled as cruel, monstrous giants, plundering the earth's finite resources, systematically enslaving humanity, and eventually, sinking so low as to turn to horrifying cannibalism when their food sources became scarce. As the moral fabric of the world descended irrevocably into chaos, divine intervention became not just likely, but absolutely inevitable. This theme of divine beings improperly imparting destructive, forbidden wisdom to humanity starkly mirrors the narrative in Genesis 3, where the serpent tempts Eve with the fruit of knowledge, tragically leading to the fall of mankind. But while Genesis attributes sin primarily to human disobedience and free will, the Book of Enoch radically shifts the blame to these malevolent supernatural beings, powerfully suggesting that the pervasive evil on earth was not merely a consequence of poor human choices, but rather the devastating fallout of a larger, cosmic war waged between opposing divine forces. Seeing the complete devastation wrought upon the world, the four great archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, were dispatched by God to capture the Watchers and formally present their staggering crimes before the Almighty. Divine justice was immediate and swift. The Nephilim were sentenced to complete destruction. To purify and cleanse the world of their wickedness and corrupted seed, God unleashed the great flood, wiping them entirely from existence. The Watchers themselves were rounded up and imprisoned indefinitely in the abyss, bound tightly in gloomy darkness until the final, appointed judgment day. Azazel, identified as the chief corrupter, received a unique, horrific punishment. He was buried beneath the desolate desert, sealed away in a state of eternal torment. This judgment is powerfully reflected in the New Testament, specifically 2 Peter 2 verse 4, which states explicitly, God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. The Apostle Jude also clearly references this catastrophic event in his epistle, suggesting that early Christians were profoundly aware of and gave credence to Enoch's writings. The core idea of powerful angels mating with human women and actively playing a primary role in corrupting mankind, however, strongly contradicts mainstream Christian theology, which largely attributes the origin and continuation of sin to human free will and Adam's fall. Enoch's supernatural explanation for the origins of evil presents a far more mystical, complex, and cosmological narrative than the structured theology the canonical Bible generally allows. But the fall of the Watchers was only the dramatic opening act of a larger divine plan. Their corruption had set something far greater into motion. Was their dramatic rebellion merely a precursor to an even greater, final event, a divine reckoning foretelling the coming of the promised Messiah? The Book of Parables drastically shifts its temporal focus to the future, unveiling an intricate vision of the end times centered around a mysterious, powerful figure called the Son of Man. This title, which later became fundamentally central in Christianity to describe Jesus Christ, holds a distinct and complex meaning in the Book of Enoch. In Enochic literature, the Son of Man is portrayed as a magnificent, celestial being, a sovereign entity who was pre-existent before the very creation of the universe, and who was hidden carefully by God until the appointed moment of revelation. When he is finally dramatically revealed, he descends with overwhelming divine authority to judge the wicked, to establish a physical kingdom of absolute righteousness, and to sit upon a glorious throne for all eternity. This potent vision closely parallels the famous passage in Daniel 7 verses 13 to 14, where a figure like a son of man is granted everlasting dominion and an eternal kingdom by the Ancient of Days. The New Testament unmistakably echoes this profound imagery, particularly in Matthew 24 verse 30, where Jesus refers to himself by the same title, the Son of Man, emphasizing his future return in glory. Despite these undeniable similarities, there are crucial, often overlooked distinctions between the Son of Man in the Book of Enoch and Jesus Christ as depicted in the Gospels. The Book of Enoch presents this figure as an exalted, cosmic being who has existed from the beginning of time, but whose power remains latent, hidden until the final grand judgment. Crucially, unlike Jesus, the Enochian Son of Man does not take on human flesh, nor does he suffer or die for humanity's sins. His primary role is purely that of a divine judge who condemns the utterly wicked and vindicates the righteous who have persevered. Contrastingly, Jesus in canonical Christian theology is defined as both judge and savior. He does not merely execute cosmic justice but also lovingly offers salvation, sacrificing himself entirely for the redemption of humankind. The Book of Enoch does not explicitly present the Son of Man as a suffering Messiah who requires sacrifice. Instead, he is a sovereign, powerful figure who appears only at the appointed time to carry out immediate, divine justice. This stands in stark contrast with the New Testament portrayal of Jesus, who identifies himself as the Son of Man, but first comes in complete humility, willingly enduring profound suffering and death before his triumphant return in glory. While Enoch's Son of Man represents the deterministic fulfillment of divine judgment, Jesus encompasses the dual role of both judgment and redemption, bringing grace and salvation to the world before executing final justice at the end of time. This theological distinction powerfully highlights a fundamental difference between the Enochic and Christian eschatological visions. In the Book of Parables, history is viewed as unfolding in a predetermined, deterministic manner, leading inevitably to the cosmic moment when the Son of Man enacts brutal, divine retribution. There is notably no mention of atonement, sacrifice, or personal salvation offered during the process, only a final, absolute reckoning. In deep contrast, The Christian understanding of history is fundamentally shaped by the idea of redemption, where Jesus' suffering and resurrection provide humanity with a crucial path to salvation and grace before the final judgment. Could these differences indicate an evolving messianic expectation, where ideas about divine judgment and the necessity of salvation developed gradually over time? Or do they perhaps reflect separate, competing traditions that only later awkwardly converged within Christian theology? Enoch's next vision delves even deeper, revealing a symbolic timeline in which history itself follows a hidden, coded pattern, awaiting to be uncovered by the faithful. The Book of Dreams is widely considered one of the most mysterious and symbolically dense sections of the Book of Enoch, containing a complex series of visions that depict all of human history in veiled, symbolic form. Unlike the previous sections which focused on explicit cosmic events and direct divine judgment, this book presents a prophetic, allegorical timeline spanning past, present, and future events. Through intricate allegorical imagery, it claims to reveal the inevitable rise and fall of great nations, specific divine interventions, and the ultimate certain fate of the world. What makes this section particularly compelling is its dramatic, apocalyptic tone, closely resembling the prophetic books of the Old Testament, particularly Daniel and Ezekiel. However, it also controversially introduces unique theological elements that do not appear in the canonical scriptures, leading to much speculation about its significance and its eventual suppression. The Book of Dreams is divided into two major visions, both delivered to Enoch as profound revelations concerning the destiny of humanity. The first dream vision provides a condensed retelling of the events leading up to the Great Flood, focusing specifically on the moral corruption of the Watchers, the terrifying rise of the Nephilim, and the eventual catastrophic destruction of the world. However, it significantly expands upon the brief biblical account, emphasizing the profound spiritual consequences of humanity's descent into sin. While this aligns with Genesis 6-9, where God sends a flood to cleanse the earth, the Book of Dreams controversially suggests that the disembodied spirits of some Nephilim survived the deluge, remaining on earth as wandering demonic spirits. This specific idea does not appear anywhere in the canonical Bible, though it is referenced later in Jewish and early Christian demonology, providing an origin for many concepts of evil spirits. The second dream vision, often referred to as the animal apocalypse, is the most cryptic and controversial part of the book. It presents the entire history of Israel, from creation to the final judgment. But instead of using traditional historical records or human figures, it depicts key biblical figures as symbolic animals. Adam and Eve appear as pure white bulls. Cain is symbolized as a fierce black bull while Abel is a pure white one. Noah is symbolized as a great white bull with red horns, indicating his unique role. The Israelites are represented throughout the narrative as helpless sheep, while their enemies, the Egyptians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, are graphically portrayed as ravenous wild beasts. This allegorical vision mirrors the symbolic structure of the Book of Daniel, which also uses animal symbolism to represent various empires and rulers. However, the animal apocalypse goes far beyond Daniel, prophesying a future age when the Messiah, here depicted as a great white bull, will dramatically restore divine order, vanquishing evil and corruption once and for all time. If history is encoded in such symbolic dreams and powerful visions, then perhaps the Book of Dreams was only a prelude to something even greater and more defining. But Enoch's revelations did not stop there. His last vision claimed to unlock the intimate mysteries of the final, inescapable judgment of all souls. The Epistle of Enoch delivers the most solemn, direct, and uncompromising warning in the entire Book of Enoch. A final, inescapable judgment where every soul will face the cosmic consequences of their actions. Unlike the earlier sections which meticulously describe celestial events and hidden cosmic knowledge, this part focuses entirely on the moral destiny and cosmic fate of humanity. While it shares some strong similarities with the Book of Revelation, John's Apocalypse, it also presents a distinct theological vision that significantly diverges from the central biblical narrative in key ways. In the Epistle of Enoch, humanity is rigidly divided into inflexible categories based solely on righteousness and sin. Those who have diligently followed divine law and lived lives of moral purity will be welcomed into God's eternal presence, where they will experience unending joy and immense divine favor. Their names are inscribed forever in the Book of Life, and they will inherit a renewed creation, entirely free from corruption. This powerfully echoes the promises found in Revelation 21 verses 1 to 4, where a new heaven and earth replace the old, corrupted one. Yet Enoch places a much stronger, more alarming emphasis on predestination. Those deemed righteous were specifically chosen before the very foundation of the world. Conversely, the utterly wicked, those who have openly defied God, brutally oppressed the righteous, and widely spread evil, will be violently cast into an abyss of fire, a place of eternal destruction specifically prepared for both them and the fallen angels. This fiery imagery is strikingly similar to the lake of fire described in Revelation 20 verses 14 to 15, yet there is a significant theological difference. The Book of Enoch does not suggest a universal resurrection of the dead before judgment, as is common in Christian eschatology. Instead, judgment appears final and absolute from the very moment of death, with no possibility of redemption, repentance, or restoration. However, beyond these two strictly defined groups, a third ambiguous category exists, those neither entirely righteous nor completely wicked. Their ultimate fate remains darkly ambiguous and subject to much scholarly debate. Some interpretations suggest they are permanently separated from the righteous, awaiting further, perhaps temporary, judgment, while others propose their punishment is severe but strictly temporary. Unlike the Bible, which introduces the possibility of a millennial rule under Christ in Revelation 20 verses 4 to 6, the Book of Enoch lacks the crucial concept of a 1,000-year reign where some souls may yet be saved or restored to grace. Instead, it presents a more immediate and absolute division of humanity into fixed, unchangeable destinies. This rigid separation in the Epistle of Enoch reflects a different, much harsher theological outlook from the Bible's depiction of salvation history. The Book of Revelation presents an eschatological process where Christ's return initiates a final opportunity for restoration and renewal before the ultimate, definitive judgment. In deep contrast, Enoch emphasizes an unalterable cosmic order where each soul's fate is sealed upon death, and no future kingdom of grace intervenes to offer a second chance. Yet, judgment is not the final revelation Enoch receives. His last vision transcends morality and prophecy entirely, venturing into the intricate mysteries of the cosmos itself. In it, he attempts to unveil the hidden, divine laws governing creation, the measurement of time, and the celestial realms, secrets that had remained carefully concealed since the dawn of existence. The Astronomical Book, also known by the grandiose title of the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, is one of the most intellectually enigmatic sections of the Book of Enoch. Unlike the previous chapters which focused on judgment and prophecy, this book shifts its undivided attention to the precise, mechanical workings of the cosmos as revealed to Enoch by the knowledgeable archangel Uriel. It presents a minutely detailed vision of celestial mechanics, attempting to explain the exact paths of the sun, moon, stars, and winds, not as random, unpredictable natural forces, but as elements meticulously functioning under rigid, divine law and order. At the heart of the Astronomical Book lies its fervent attempt to describe a meticulously structured and ordered universe. But many of its detailed claims directly contradict modern astronomy. It confidently asserts that the sun and moon are precisely equal in size, and that celestial bodies move through fixed, heavenly gates, specific, fixed points in the sky where they perpetually rise and set. The book also describes the seasons as being entirely controlled by assigned angelic forces rather than the physical reality of axial tilt or planetary motion. Most intriguingly, it suggests that stars are sentient, living entities capable of sinning and being punished if they stray from their divinely appointed courses. This comprehensive perspective reflects an ancient worldview in which all elements of creation, even seemingly inanimate celestial bodies, are deeply intertwined with the immediate divine will. One of its most striking and controversial features is its fervent promotion of a strictly 364-day solar calendar, which stands in marked contrast to the traditional lunar-based Jewish calendar, which was irregular. This solar calendar, described as being divinely perfected, was later enthusiastically embraced by the Qumran community, the highly disciplined sect responsible for preserving the Dead Sea Scrolls. This suggests that certain Jewish groups saw the Enochian calendar as a necessary means to restore an ancient, divinely sanctioned method of timekeeping and religious observance. The insistence on a solar calendar may have also served as a radical rejection of the prevalent Babylonian-influenced lunar system that had been widely adopted by mainstream Judaism. While many of the astronomical books' descriptions appear highly symbolic or scientifically erroneous to modern eyes, they reflect a broader, critical theological point. The universe is not governed by random chance or impersonal natural forces, but by absolute, meticulous divine order. In the ancient world, astronomy and theology were inseparable disciplines, and early readers of Enoch may not have viewed these descriptions as mere scientific speculation, but as a genuine revelation of hidden cosmic laws. This profound belief in a structured, God-ordained universe would later profoundly influence both Jewish and early Christian thought. Although much of its cosmology is now firmly considered outdated, the astronomical book offers invaluable insight into how ancient societies understood time, celestial movements, and the complex relationship between creation and the divine. Whether read as a sacred cosmology, an ambitious ancient attempt at proto-science, or a deep theological allegory, it remains a fascinating testament to humanity's enduring quest to fully understand the heavens above. The removal of the Book of Enoch remains one of the most enigmatic, controversial, and deeply consequential religious texts in history. Once widely revered and accepted by early Jewish and emerging Christian communities, it was gradually and systematically excluded from the biblical canon, surviving today only within the protective embrace of the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. But why, fundamentally, was it removed from the official collection of sacred texts? The process of Enoch's exclusion was neither sudden nor immediate, but unfolded deliberately over several centuries. In the early foundational centuries of Christianity, some highly influential church fathers, including Athenagoras, Clement of Alexandria, and the fiery Tertullian, held it in incredibly high regard, with some even openly advocating for its official inclusion in Scripture. The Epistle of Jude even directly quotes Enoch, Jude 1 verses 14 to 15, demonstrating its widespread authority and influence on early Christian thought and preaching. However, by the critical 4th century, the book had been largely and systematically rejected by the emerging Orthodox Christian tradition. The regional councils of Laodicea and subsequent church synods played a decisive role in solidifying the closed biblical canon, rigorously favoring texts that strictly aligned with established, developing doctrine while disregarding others deemed too speculative, wildly mystical, or theologically problematic. One major, defining reason for its rejection was its supernatural content, which presented a distinct worldview that differed significantly from the developing theology of the early church. The Book of Enoch describes powerful fallen angels, the Watchers, illicitly taking human wives, teaching mankind forbidden knowledge, and producing the monstrous Nephilim, a race of giants. This dramatic, complex narrative introduced a level of cosmological complexity to the problem of sin and evil that directly conflicted with the doctrine of original sin, which was rapidly gaining prominence and centrality in Christian theology, particularly through Augustine's work. Additionally, its highly detailed descriptions of the afterlife, where different souls receive highly varying degrees of specific judgment, contrasted sharply with the simpler, more uniform vision of heaven and hell that would later dominate Christian eschatology and popular understanding. Another crucial factor in its exclusion was its complex messianic themes, which introduced the Son of Man as a pre-existent, purely celestial figure long before the historical reality of Jesus' ministry. While some elements of Enoch's messianic vision parallel Christian teachings, others significantly diverge, suggesting a figure whose role is primarily focused on absolute divine judgment rather than on the necessary atonement and redemption through sacrifice. The ambiguity surrounding the exact identity of this Son of Man figure may have heavily contributed to theological concerns among church authorities who desperately sought to consolidate a more unified and singular Christology based on the Gospels. In contrast, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved the Book of Enoch as an integral part of its official biblical tradition. This successful preservation may be attributed to the relative isolation of Ethiopian Christianity, which developed largely independently from the intense theological and political debates that fundamentally shaped Western and Eastern Christian traditions. Additionally, Ethiopian Christianity has historically maintained a broader and more flexible approach to Scripture, where the distinction between canonical and non-canonical texts is less rigidly enforced and adhered to. The fact that Enoch was removed from mainstream Christianity yet remained a revered sacred text in Ethiopia, powerfully highlights the profound diversity of early religious thought and how different cultures and institutions determine what is considered genuine divine revelation. While its exclusion was likely a theological decision, ensuring that only certain approved narratives about angels, the origins of evil, and the coming of the Messiah were preserved, it may also have been profoundly a matter of institutional control, strategically defining the rigid boundaries of what was deemed orthodox and acceptable belief. Beyond purely doctrinal concerns, one of the primary, yet often unstated, reasons for its suppression may have been the sheer radical nature of its content. Its complex cosmology, which describes a structured, almost mechanistic universe governed by detailed celestial laws, potentially conflicted with emerging Christian and later scientific perspectives. Its dramatic apocalyptic vision, which portrays a world largely dominated by terrifying supernatural forces and cosmic battles, may have been considered too speculative, mystical, or even dangerous, in an era when church leaders sought to establish a more structured, rational, and manageable theology for the masses. Whether removed for pragmatic political reasons, fundamental theological disagreements, or strict doctrinal reasons, the Book of Enoch continues to provoke intense debate and fascination, offering a compelling, alternative perspective on biblical history and the very nature of divine justice. Despite its definitive removal, the Book of Enoch never truly disappeared from the intellectual subconscious of the West. Written centuries long before the historical birth of Jesus Christ, its profound influence can be subtly seen throughout the New Testament, later apocalyptic literature, and various esoteric traditions. Its core themes, divine judgment, the terrifying cosmic battle between good and evil, and the coming of a mighty messianic figure, echo throughout later religious texts, continuously raising critical questions about its true, foundational role in shaping theological thought. If the Book of Enoch is merely an apocryphal text or a historical curiosity, then who wrote it, and for what monumental purpose? It was widely read, respected, and treated as scripture by early Jewish and Christian communities, even being quoted as authoritative in the Epistle of Jude. Why would such a significant and influential text be deliberately set aside while other writings from the same era were ultimately canonized? Was it excluded simply because of its mystical and highly speculative nature? Or were there profound concerns that its detailed themes could dangerously complicate or undermine established, consolidating doctrine? Perhaps its removal was not merely an accident of history or an oversight, but part of a broader, calculated effort to strictly define the limits of sacred scripture and ensure absolute theological consistency within the nascent church. But if Enoch was finally declared a forgery, could the same intense scrutiny and doubt be applied to the Bible itself? Could it be possible that instead of Enoch being deemed a false text, it was the formation of the canonical structure? End of segment. Biblical canon that was influenced by human intervention, shaping religious belief according to the temporal needs of those in power? What is your honest assessment? Was the Book of Enoch unfairly removed from the sacred collection? Or was its exclusion a necessary and calculated step in solidifying Christian tradition and doctrine? Share your perspective in the comments below. And if you are fascinated by deep dives into lost scriptures and the hidden history that shapes our faith, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for more content that challenges the established narrative. Enoch wrote the Book of Enoch following his extraordinary rapture, having been transported by two glorious angels into the heavens to bear witness to the profound wonders and terrifying mysteries of the celestial realm. Upon returning temporarily to earth, he did not merely come back as a man. He was fundamentally transfigured, ascending to the cosmic status of Metatron, the voice of God, the great scribe, second only to the divine presence itself, guarding the very secrets of the universe. The Book of Enoch contains volumes of forbidden knowledge, including intricate mysteries about the hierarchy of angels, the catastrophic fall of the Watchers, and detailed prophecies about the inevitable end times, all of which were rigorously excluded from the official biblical compilation. In this video, we will now explore the profound and often shocking teachings contained within the Book of Enoch, uncovering the cosmological and theological insights that the early church deliberately rejected. Following that, we will journey alongside Enoch through the 10 distinct heavens, discovering their majestic beauty and the terrifying divine secrets hidden within those celestial spheres. If you find this exploration fascinating and vital to understanding religious history, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more insights into the hidden mysteries of the cosmos. The Book of Watchers. The Book of the Watchers begins with a shocking and violent revelation. A rebellion in the celestial realms. 200 elite angels, led by the commanding figure of Samjaza, swore an oath on Mount Hermon before descending to Earth. Their mission was originally intended to be benevolent, to watch over humanity, but instead, they quickly succumbed to base, physical desire. They violated the heavenly order by interbreeding with human women, an act strictly forbidden within the divine hierarchy. And from this unnatural and catastrophic union were born the Nephilim, colossal abominations of immense size and terrifying strength, who became ruthless tyrants and warlords dominating the pre-flood world. This detailed account dramatically expands on a brief and tantalizingly cryptic passage found in Genesis 6 verses 1-4, which merely mentions that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives, resulting in the birth of the Nephilim. But Genesis offers no explanation of the origin or identity of these sons of God, nor does it elaborate on their definitive role in the corruption of the ancient world. The Book of Enoch meticulously fills in these vast theological gaps, presenting a full-scale cosmic rebellion that directly led to global chaos and destruction. The fallen angels' transgression extended far beyond mere lust. They inflicted catastrophic intellectual damage on humanity by introducing forbidden knowledge. According to the Book of Enoch, each of these angels taught dangerous secrets that humans were never meant to possess. Azazel, the principal corrupter, revealed the deadly metallurgical secrets, how to forge weapons of war, crafting swords and protective shields, thereby introducing organized warfare and the stench of systematic bloodshed into the world. Samjaza instructed them in sorcery, opening the doors to dark magic and forbidden occult rituals. Barakael revealed the hidden mysteries of astrology, teaching mankind to seek predetermined power through the configuration of the stars, rather than through humble reliance on God. Kokabel taught the constellations, and Shamsiel unveiled the precise movements of the sun and moon, altering humanity's perception of the natural order. Unfortunately, what was meant to be divine, ordered knowledge became a source of irreversible corruption. Instead of enlightenment, it brought unprecedented violence, destructive greed, and widespread oppression. The Nephilim ruled as cruel giants, systematically plundering earthly resources, enslaving humanity, and eventually turning to cannibalism when sustenance became scarce. As the world descended into total moral and physical chaos, divine intervention became utterly inevitable. This theme, divine beings imparting dangerous, forbidden wisdom to humanity, mirrors the narrative of Genesis 3, where the serpent tempts Eve with the fruit of knowledge, leading directly to the fall of mankind. But while Genesis ultimately attributes sin to human curiosity and disobedience, the Book of Enoch dramatically shifts the blame to supernatural, external forces, suggesting that the root of evil on earth was not merely a result of human free will, but rather a direct infection stemming from a cosmic war between divine entities. Seeing the utter devastation, the great archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel were immediately dispatched to capture the Watchers and present their damning crimes before the throne of God. Divine justice was swift and uncompromising. The Nephilim were sentenced to complete destruction. To cleanse the world of their pervasive wickedness, God unleashed the great flood, wiping them from physical existence. The Watchers were imprisoned in the abyss, eternally bound in gloomy darkness until the final, inescapable judgment. Azazel, identified as the chief instigator and corrupter, was buried beneath the desert, sealed away in a place of eternal torment. This severe judgment is powerfully reflected in 2 Peter 2 verse 4, which explicitly states, God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. The Apostle Jude also directly references this pivotal event, suggesting that early Christians were profoundly aware of and influenced by Enoch's dramatic writings. The core idea of angels mating with humans and actively playing an influential, corrupting role in mankind's degradation fundamentally contradicts later, mainstream Christian theology, which largely attributes sin and evil to human free will and Adam's original transgression. Enoch's supernatural explanation for the origins of evil presents a far more mystical, complex, and politically charged narrative than the heavily edited canonical Bible ultimately allowed. But the fall of the Watchers was only the genesis of the larger cosmic drama. Their corruption had set something far greater into terrifying motion. Was their initial rebellion merely a prelude to an even greater, ultimate event? A divine reckoning that would herald the dramatic coming of the Messiah? The Book of Parables. The Book of Parables dramatically shifts its focus to the future, unveiling a detailed vision of the end times centered around a majestic and mysterious figure known as the Son of Man. This title, which later became the central self-identifier used by Jesus Christ in Christianity, holds a distinct, pre-Christian meaning within the Book of Enoch. In Enochic literature, the Son of Man is portrayed as an exalted, celestial being, pre-existent before the creation of the universe, hidden by God until the appointed catastrophic time. When he is finally revealed, he comes vested with overwhelming divine authority to judge the wicked, establish a kingdom of perfect righteousness, and sit on a glorious throne for eternity. This vision closely parallels the imagery found in Daniel 7 verses 13 to 14, where a figure like a son of man is granted dominion and an everlasting kingdom by the Ancient of Days. The New Testament echoes this cosmic imagery, particularly in Matthew 24 verse 30, where Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man who will return in overwhelming glory. Despite these evident similarities, there are crucial and defining distinctions between the Son of Man described in the Book of Enoch and Jesus Christ as depicted in the Gospels. The Book of Enoch presents this figure as an exalted cosmic being who has existed from the very beginning, but remains entirely concealed until the moment of the final judgment. Unlike Jesus, he does not take on vulnerable human flesh, nor does he suffer for humanity's sins. His essential role is solely that of a divine judge, a figure of cosmic accountability, who condemns the wicked and fully vindicates the righteous. In contrast, Jesus, within Orthodox Christian theology, is established as both ultimate judge and compassionate savior. He does not merely execute justice but also willingly offers salvation, sacrificing himself for the redemption of humankind. The Book of Enoch does not explicitly present the Son of Man as a suffering Messiah. Instead, he is a sovereign, unapproachable figure who appears only at the appointed time to carry out immediate divine justice. This contrasts sharply with the New Testament portrayal of Jesus, who identifies himself as the Son of Man, but first comes in profound humility, willingly enduring suffering and death before his return in power and glory. While Enoch's Son of Man represents the fulfillment of inevitable divine judgment, Jesus encompasses both judgment and redemption, offering grace and a path to salvation before executing justice at the conclusion of history. This distinction highlights a fundamental difference between the Enochic and Christian eschatological visions. In the Book of Parables, history unfolds in a deterministic and fixed manner, leading inevitably to the final, necessary moment when the Son of Man enacts divine retribution. There is no mention of atonement, sacrifice, or personal salvation offered mid-process, only a final, predetermined reckoning. In contrast, the Christian understanding of history is completely shaped by the pivotal idea of redemption, where Jesus' suffering and resurrection provide all humanity with a path to salvation before the ultimate judgment. Could these deep differences indicate an evolving messianic expectation within early Judaism, where ideas about divine judgment and salvation developed and converged over time? Or do they simply reflect entirely separate traditions that later clashed and were eventually incorporated into early Christian theology? Enoch's next vision delves even deeper into the cosmos, revealing a symbolic timeline in which history itself follows a hidden pattern encoded in divine revelation and simply waiting to be uncovered by the faithful. The Book of Dreams. The Book of Dreams is one of the most obscure and mysterious sections of the Book of Enoch, containing a series of vivid visions that depict the entirety of human history in symbolic, allegorical form. Unlike the previous sections which focused on specific cosmic events and the mechanism of divine judgment, this book presents a prophetic timeline of past, present, and future events using coded language. Through powerful allegorical imagery, it claims to reveal the definitive rise and fall of nations, specific divine interventions throughout history, and the ultimate, inevitable fate of the world. What makes this section particularly fascinating is its overwhelming apocalyptic tone, profoundly resembling the prophetic books of the Old Testament, particularly Daniel and Ezekiel. However, it also introduces unique and unsettling elements that do not appear in the canonical scriptures, leading to much speculation about its theological significance and subsequent suppression. The Book of Dreams is divided into two major visions, both delivered to Enoch as profound revelations concerning the destiny of humanity. The first dream vision provides a detailed retelling of the events leading up to the Great Flood, focusing heavily on the corruption caused by the Watchers, the terrifying rise of the Nephilim, and the eventual destruction of the world. However, it expands significantly upon the terse biblical account, emphasizing the spiritual and cosmological consequences of humanity's total descent into sin. This aligns with Genesis 6-9, where God sends a flood to violently cleanse the earth. Yet, the Book of Dreams introduces the unsettling idea that some Nephilim spirits survived the flood, remaining on earth as powerful, malicious wandering spirits, an idea that does not appear in the canonical Bible but is directly referenced in later Jewish and Christian demonology. The second dream vision, often called the animal apocalypse, is the most cryptic and controversial part of the entire book. It presents the history of Israel from creation right up to the final judgment, but instead of using traditional historical records, it depicts key biblical figures as animals. Adam and Eve appear as pristine white bulls. Cain is a vicious black bull while Abel is a pure white one. Noah is powerfully symbolized as a white bull with striking red horns. The Israelites are represented as a flock of beleaguered sheep, while their enemies, the Egyptians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, are portrayed as predatory wild beasts. This highly symbolic vision mirrors the structural approach of the Book of Daniel, which also uses animal symbolism to represent empires and rulers. However, the animal apocalypse goes far beyond Daniel, prophesying a glorious future age when the Messiah, depicted as a great, irresistible white bull, will fully restore divine order, vanquishing all evil once and for all. If history is written in symbols and prophetic visions, then perhaps the Book of Dreams was only a prelude to something even greater. But Enoch's revelations did not cease there. His next vision claimed to unlock the profound mysteries of the final judgment of all souls. The Epistle of Enoch. The Epistle of Enoch delivers the most solemn, direct, and uncompromising warning in the entire book. It describes a final, inescapable judgment where every soul will face the definitive consequences of their earthly actions. Unlike the earlier sections, which describe celestial architecture and hidden esoteric knowledge, this part focuses entirely on the moral and cosmic fate of individual humanity. While it shares some striking similarities with the Book of Revelation, it also presents a distinct theological vision that diverges sharply from the biblical narrative in key ways. In the Epistle of Enoch, humanity is rigidly divided into fixed categories based on righteousness and sin. Those who have meticulously followed divine law and lived in purity will be welcomed into God's eternal presence, where they will experience unending joy and divine favor. Their names are inscribed in the sacred book of life, and they will inherit a renewed creation completely free from corruption. This strongly echoes the promises found in Revelation 21 verses 1-4, where a new heaven and earth replace the old order. Yet, Enoch places a much stronger emphasis on the concept of predestination. Those deemed righteous were specifically chosen before the foundation of the world. Conversely, the utterly wicked, those who have defied God, oppressed the righteous, and enthusiastically spread evil, will be cast into an abyss of fire, a place of eternal, absolute destruction prepared for both them and the fallen angels. This terrifying imagery is strikingly similar to the lake of fire described in Revelation 20 verses 14-15, yet with a significant doctrinal difference. The Book of Enoch does not suggest a general resurrection of the dead before judgment, as is central to Christian eschatology. Instead, judgment appears final and immediate from the moment of death, with no possibility of redemption or restoration for the condemned. However, beyond these two primary groups, a perplexing third category exists: those souls who were neither entirely righteous nor completely wicked. Their fate remains decidedly ambiguous. Some interpretations suggest they are permanently separated from the righteous, awaiting some further, lesser judgment, while others propose their punishment is severe but temporary. Unlike the Bible, which introduces the possibility of a millennial rule under Christ in Revelation 20 verses 4-6, the Book of Enoch lacks the concept of a 1,000-year reign where some may yet be saved or restored during that period of grace. Instead, it presents a more immediate and absolute division of humanity into fixed, unalterable destinies. This rigid separation in the Epistle of Enoch reflects a different theological outlook from the Bible's depiction of a salvation history built around grace and opportunity. The Book of Revelation presents an eschatological process where Christ's return initiates a final opportunity for restoration and renewal before the ultimate judgment. In contrast, Enoch emphasizes an unalterable cosmic order where each soul's fate is sealed, and no future kingdom of grace intervenes to offer reprieve. Yet judgment is not the final revelation Enoch receives. His last vision transcends mere morality and prophecy, venturing directly into the mysteries of the cosmos itself. In it, he attempts to unveil the hidden laws governing creation, time, and the celestial realms, secrets that had remained profoundly concealed since the dawn of existence. The Astronomical Book. The Astronomical Book, also known as the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, is one of the most intellectually ambitious and enigmatic sections of the Book of Enoch. Unlike previous chapters which focus primarily on divine judgment and prophecy, this book shifts its entire attention to the highly structured workings of the cosmos, as they were revealed to Enoch by the archangel Uriel. It presents a detailed and complex vision of celestial mechanics, attempting to explain the precise paths of the sun, moon, stars, and winds, not as random natural forces, but as elements functioning under meticulous divine law. At the very heart of the Astronomical Book is its attempt to describe a structured, mathematically ordered, and profoundly precise universe. But many of its specific claims radically contradict modern astronomy. It asserts, for example, that the sun and moon are precisely equal in size and that celestial bodies move through 6 fixed, heavenly gates, specific points in the sky where they rise and set. The book also meticulously describes the seasons as being controlled by powerful angelic forces rather than resulting from axial tilt or planetary motion. Most intriguingly, it suggests that stars are living, sentient entities capable of sinning and being punished if they stray from their divinely appointed courses. This perspective reflects an ancient geocentric worldview in which all elements of creation, even seemingly inanimate celestial bodies, are deeply intertwined with and subject to divine will. One of its most striking functional features is its fervent promotion of a strictly ordered 364-day solar calendar, which stands in polemical contrast to the traditional lunar-based Jewish calendar of the time. This calendar, described as divinely perfected and inherently precise, was later fanatically embraced by the Qumran community, the sect responsible for the Dead Sea Scrolls, suggesting that certain Jewish groups saw it as the means to restore an ancient, divinely sanctioned method of timekeeping. The insistence on a solar calendar may have also been a political and theological rejection of the Babylonian-influenced lunar system that had been adopted by mainstream Jerusalem Judaism. While many of the Astronomical Book's precise descriptions now appear symbolic or scientifically obsolete, they reflect a broader, enduring theological point. The universe is not governed by random chance or impersonal forces, but by meticulous, eternal divine order. In the ancient world, astronomy and theology were intrinsically connected, and early readers of Enoch may not have viewed these descriptions as mere intellectual speculation, but as an essential revelation of hidden cosmic laws. This belief in a structured, God-ordained universe would later profoundly influence both early Jewish and fledgling Christian thought. Although much of its cosmology is now considered outdated by modern science, the Astronomical Book offers valuable, unique insight into how ancient societies understood time, celestial movements, and the fundamental relationship between creation and the divine. Whether read as a sacred cosmology, an ancient attempt at proto-science, or a theological allegory, it remains a fascinating testament to humanity's enduring quest to understand the heavens. The removal of the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch remains one of the most enigmatic and deeply controversial religious texts in history. Once revered and highly utilized by certain early Jewish and Christian communities, it was gradually and systematically excluded from the biblical canon, surviving only intact within the distinct Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition. But why, fundamentally, was it removed? The process of Enoch's exclusion was not instantaneous, but unfolded slowly and deliberately over several centuries. In the early centuries of Christianity, some influential church fathers, including Athenagoras, Clement of Alexandria, and Tertullian, held it in high regard, with some even advocating for its official inclusion in Scripture. The Epistle of Jude even directly quotes Enoch, Jude 1 verses 14 to 15, powerfully demonstrating its widespread influence on early Christian thought and preaching. However, by the 4th century, the book had been largely and decisively rejected by the emerging Orthodox Christian tradition. The councils of Laodicea and subsequent church synods played a crucial role in solidifying the biblical canon, rigorously favoring texts that aligned precisely with established doctrine while disregarding others deemed too speculative, mystical, or theologically problematic. One major and persistent reason for its rejection was its extensive supernatural content, which presented a cosmological worldview that differed significantly from the developing, formalized theology of the early church. The Book of Enoch describes fallen angels, the Watchers, taking human wives, teaching forbidden knowledge, and producing the Nephilim, a demonic race of giants. This highly detailed narrative added a complex and unsettling dimension to the problem of sin and evil that contrasted sharply with the simpler doctrine of original sin derived from Adam's choice, a doctrine which was rapidly gaining prominence in Latin Christian theology. Additionally, its highly detailed descriptions of the afterlife, where different souls receive varying intermediate degrees of judgment, contrasted with the simpler, more uniform binary vision of heaven and hell that would later dominate Christian eschatology. Another significant factor in its exclusion was its prominent messianic themes, which introduced the Son of Man as a pre-existent celestial figure long before Jesus' earthly ministry. While some elements of Enoch's messianic vision parallel later Christian teachings, others diverge, suggesting a figure whose role is primarily focused on divine judgment rather than the essential elements of atonement and redemption. The theological ambiguity surrounding the precise identity of this Son of Man may have contributed to major theological concerns among church authorities who were striving to consolidate a unified, singular Christology. In stark contrast, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved the Book of Enoch as an integral part of its biblical tradition. This may be due to the relative geographical and theological isolation of Ethiopian Christianity, which developed independently from the tumultuous theological and political debates that shaped the Western and Eastern Christian traditions. Additionally, Ethiopian Christianity has historically maintained a broader and more flexible approach to Scripture, where the distinction between canonical and non-canonical texts is less rigidly enforced. The fact that Enoch was excluded from mainstream Christianity, yet remained a foundational, sacred text in Ethiopia, highlights the sheer diversity of early religious thought and how different cultures determine what is considered divine revelation. While its exclusion was likely a major theological decision, ensuring that only certain narratives about angels, the origins of evil, and the coming of the Messiah were preserved, it may also have been a matter of institutional control, defining the absolute boundaries of what was deemed orthodox belief. Beyond doctrinal concerns, one of the primary reasons for its eventual suppression may have been its radical cosmological content. Its specific depiction of a structured universe governed by meticulous celestial laws conflicted with emerging Christian and later scientific perspectives. Its apocalyptic vision, which portrays a world heavily dominated by dramatic supernatural forces and angelic interactions, may have been considered too speculative, even dangerously destabilizing, in an era when church leaders sought to establish a more structured, rational, and controllable theology. Whether removed for deep political, theological, or doctrinal reasons, the Book of Enoch continues to provoke debate, offering a powerful, alternative perspective on biblical history and the very nature of divine justice. Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, holds the unique distinction of being the only man who walked so closely with God that he never tasted death. One day he mysteriously vanished from the earth, taken by angels directly into heaven. But his journey was more than just a simple ascent. He passed through 10 distinct, magnificent heavens, each dimension revealing deeper, exponentially more profound layers of the divine order. Some realms shone with blinding, unbearable light where angels worshipped eternally, while others were terrifying abysses of darkness where fallen beings lay imprisoned, awaiting their final, crushing judgment. His experiences, meticulously recorded in the Book of Enoch, unveil a vision of heaven far more complex and mysterious than traditional biblical teachings allow. For now, join us as we begin the ascent with him and uncover the mysteries of the 10 heavens. The first heaven. Enoch was suddenly lifted and ascended, and found himself suspended in a vast, tumultuous expanse filled with swirling winds, thick clouds, and shifting, ethereal lights. This was the first heaven, the closest realm to the terrestrial earth, yet still profoundly beyond mortal reach. Here, the skies stretched endlessly, filled with primal forces that govern the natural world. Rain, snow, thunder, and heavy mist, all meticulously controlled and regulated by powerful angelic beings specifically appointed by God for that task. He saw great storehouses where the raw, powerful winds were kept bound, ready to be released at their appointed times. Lightning flashed, held in place by celestial guardians, while the angels of weather and seasons moved in perfect harmony, meticulously recording the climate of the world below. Then beyond the clouds, Enoch beheld something even more astonishing and formidable. A vast, terrifying cosmic ocean shimmering like liquid crystal. This was the waters above the firmament, the very waters God had separated from the earthly seas during the primordial creation. Genesis 1 verses 6 to 7. These colossal reservoirs held a truly terrifying purpose, for Enoch would later understand that in the days of his great-grandson Noah, the Almighty would unleash them upon the earth, pouring them down to cleanse the world of its rampant wickedness. Yet this awe-inspiring spectacle was only the lowest of the heavens. Above him lay realms of far greater mystery and profound, dreadful power. The second heaven. As Enoch ascended beyond the first heaven, he entered a realm of suffocating twilight and profound despair. The very air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural, chilling stillness. No natural sun or moon offered light here. Only a dim, sickly glow cast flickering shadows upon a vast, seemingly endless prison carved from jagged black stone. Suspended over a bottomless, silent abyss, immense chains stretched tautly across the chasm, binding enormous figures. These mighty beings hung inverted, their once radiant, celestial forms now horribly twisted and consumed by ceaseless, silent suffering. These were the Watchers, the fallen angels who had rebelled, descending to earth, taking human wives, and corrupting mankind with the teaching of forbidden knowledge and dark arts. Their brazen rebellion had plunged the world into chaos, birthing the monstrous Nephilim, giant offspring that ravaged the earth, as chronicled meticulously in the Book of Watchers. And I saw the Watchers bound in a terrible place, hanging with their heads downward. And I asked, "Who are these?" And the angel said, "These are the ones who transgressed against the Lord, who mingled with the daughters of men. They shall remain here until the great judgment." 1 Enoch 21:6-10. Around this dismal prison stood mighty angels clad in armor forged of fiery bronze, their faces stern and utterly resolute as they wielded massive flaming swords to guard the vast pit. No plea for mercy would ever be heard within this desolate confine, a stark contrast to the glorious, luminous heaven described in later Christian tradition, where loyal angels dwell in eternal worship before God. Revelation 4 verses 8-11. This was a hidden realm of cosmic punishment, known only to a few. In mainstream biblical accounts, fallen angels are generally cast directly into the abyss or Tartarus. 2 Peter 2 verse 4. But here, Enoch witnessed them imprisoned within the heavens themselves, trapped far from both the sanctity of God's throne and the earth they had once corrupted. The sight was a sobering reminder. If even angels could suffer such an absolute, eternal fate, what awaited sinful men, and what greater mysteries lay beyond? The third heaven. As Enoch ascended into the third heaven, the suffocating darkness and heavy despair of the second heaven instantly vanished, giving way to a realm of indescribable, luminous beauty. A vast, celestial garden stretched endlessly before him, a true paradise. Here, golden leaf trees bore luminous, crystalline fruit, glowing softly like captured starlight. The air was rich, vibrant, and dense with the fragrance of exotic flowers unknown to earth, their scent filling his spirit with profound and immediate peace. Beneath his feet, the ground was covered in grass softer than fine silk. For great, majestic rivers flowed through this paradise, carrying milk, honey, wine, and consecrated oil. At the garden's heart stood the magnificent tree of life, its radiant branches stretching upward into what seemed like eternity, casting a warm glow over the entire realm. Around it, the souls of the righteous, clothed in dazzling white robes, walked in tranquility, lifting their voices in continuous, melodious songs of praise, as graceful angels moved among them, overseeing their peace. This was paradise, untouched by the stain of sin and death, preserved in its purest, glorious form. But as Enoch turned his gaze, the overwhelming light dimmed subtly, and a horrifying sight emerged in the distance. Beyond the meticulously kept garden's edge yawned a massive, terrifying chasm, tearing through the heavens like a raw, open wound. Unlike the flowing, gentle rivers of paradise, this abyss seethed with smoldering darkness and searing violent flames. From within, agonizing wails echoed continuously, the voices of the damned, imprisoned in torment for their blatant defiance of God's holy law. Here, sinners were suspended by invisible, crushing chains. Their suffering was unbearable, a perpetual agony, yet it was incomplete, for their final reckoning and judgment had not yet come. A river of molten lava, thick and viscous like liquid iron, flowed endlessly into the depths, relentlessly feeding the inferno of the abyss. Towering angels of punishment, clad in black and steel armor and crowned with coronets of fire, moved relentlessly among the condemned. Their eyes glowed fiercely like hot embers. They wielded whips of flame and spears wreathed in crackling lightning, carrying out divine retribution with neither mercy nor hesitation. Unlike traditional teachings that strictly separate paradise and hell into different dimensions, Enoch saw both realms coexisting within the third heaven itself. The righteous and the condemned were sharply divided, yet they remained in a state of waiting, their ultimate, final fate still unfulfilled. Here, heaven was not just a place of eternal reward. It was also a crucial, hidden realm of judgment where destinies were temporarily sealed long before the final reckoning of the world. If even the righteous must wait for their final, eternal reward, what greater mysteries awaited in the heavens above? The fourth heaven. As Enoch ascended into the fourth heaven, he entered a realm of dazzling, mechanical radiance unlike the sheltered paradise below or the searing abyss of the fallen. The sky stretched infinitely, filled with colossal celestial bodies moving in perfect, rhythmic harmony. Before him, the sun, the moon, and the stars were not mere lights, but mighty forces, each governed by angelic beings of immense, shimmering stature. The sun burned with a visible, divine fire. The moon glowed with cold, silver brilliance, and the stars pulsed as if breathing in a majestic, celestial rhythm. Legions upon legions of angels moved with swift purpose, clad in garments woven from pure, condensed light. Some meticulously recorded the passage of days and months on massive golden tablets, while others tended colossal spinning mechanisms, wheels of fire and crystal that marked and regulated the precise flow of time. These were the celestial timekeepers, the silent guardians of cosmic order. One angel turned to Enoch, his voice resonating with deep wisdom, and said, "The sun does not rise by its own will, nor does the moon wax and wane by chance. All things follow the precise, unchangeable decrees of the Most High." Genesis describes the celestial bodies as simple creations of the fourth day. But Enoch saw far more. A hidden, complex realm where powerful angels maintained the very fabric and integrity of time. If even the stars were ruled by such unseen, profound forces, what greater mysteries awaited above? The fifth heaven. As Enoch ascended into the fifth heaven, the mechanical radiance of the fourth heaven gradually faded, replaced by a vast, cold, and desolate expanse where only crushing silence reigned supreme. No light shone, and no angelic choirs sang hymns of praise. Only a great, somber army of towering warriors stood before him. These were the wingless angels, standing in endless, motionless ranks. Their massive heads were bowed in sorrow, their dark armors were etched with despair, and an overwhelming, palpable sense of failure and abandonment hung over the entire realm. At first, they did not stir, as if time itself had frozen them into place. But when they beheld the approaching figure of Enoch, a great, unified cry arose, shattering the pervasive silence. These were the Grigori, the Watchers who had once served under Santanel, the mighty angel prince who had rebelled and was cast out of heaven on the second day of creation. Though the Grigori themselves had not descended to earth like their fallen brethren, they had followed Santanel's rebellious command and were now trapped in this forgotten, silent realm, neither fully condemned nor fully redeemed. They fell heavily to their knees and cried out desperately to Enoch, "Righteous One, speak for us before the Lord, intercede for us, for we are forsaken and left in torment." Unlike the depiction of Satan in Christian tradition who roams the earth and tempts mankind, Job 1 verse 7, Revelation 12 verse 9, Santanel's rebellion was immediate and final. He was stripped of his glory and instantly cast down, leaving his followers abandoned and despairing in this cold silence. If even these mighty, powerful angels were left in such absolute despair, what awaited in the heavens above, where the divine judgment was absolute and final? The sixth heaven. As Enoch ascended into the sixth heaven, the sorrow and coldness of the fifth heaven immediately faded, giving way to a realm of perfect, illuminated order and precise divine purpose. Before him stretched an immense, conceptual city of radiant halls, towering pillars, and vast, organized courts, not built of earthly stone, but woven entirely from pure light and controlled fire. The very air hummed with the constant, soft sound of quills scratching against eternal scrolls, and the gentle murmur of voices reciting sacred decrees. Here, countless angels moved with focused purpose, neither warriors nor messengers, but meticulous scribes and divine record-keepers, clothed in robes whiter than freshly fallen snow. Their faces shone with a quiet, ancient wisdom as they carefully inscribed the deeds of all humanity onto vast, glowing scrolls and intricate tablets. Some worked alone, diligently writing upon glowing parchment, while others stood before majestic, colossal thrones where even greater angels dictated the precise decrees of God that would shape the fates of men and nations. Turning to his guide, Enoch asked, "Who are these, and what is their monumental task?" The angel replied, "These are the holy scribes who write the prayers of the righteous, the judgments upon kings, and the destinies of the entire world. Nothing is forgotten, no deed is lost, for all is written before the face of the Lord." If even the smallest, most secret deeds were so meticulously recorded in the heavens, what awaited beyond this realm, where the highest, most profound mysteries of God were finally revealed? The seventh heaven. As Enoch ascended into the seventh heaven, an overwhelming, all-consuming radiance engulfed him. Blinding light stretched infinitely in all directions. Yet, miraculously, it did not burn. Rather, it filled him with absolute awe and profound reverence. Before him stood the highest order of angels, beings of unimaginable, terrifying majesty. The seraphim, towering figures of pure, living flame, each possessing 6 massive, fiery wings, hovered silently above. With 2 wings they covered their faces, shielding themselves from the blinding, annihilating presence of the Almighty. With 2 they covered their feet in humility, and with the last 2 they flew in endless, perfect motion, their unified voices echoing across eternity. "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Beside them stood the cherubim. Each possessed 4 great faces, of a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a man, representing the magnificent fullness of creation. Their vast bodies were covered with countless, constantly shifting, all-seeing eyes, and they moved like lightning, their massive wings whispering with immense power. Beneath them were the thrones, beings of unimaginable grandeur. Their forms were vast, turning celestial wheels covered entirely in burning eyes, endlessly revolving in perfect, synchronous harmony, bearing the divine will upon them. This was the first of 3 realms closest to the immediate presence of the Most High, where even the greatest of angels veiled themselves before his unbearable majesty. For the first time on his journey, Enoch began to truly feel the presence of God, a force beyond all comprehension, radiating through the very fabric of existence. The higher he ascended, the closer he came to the original source of all creation, the eighth heaven. As Enoch ascended into the eighth heaven, the glorious golden glow of the seventh heaven faded slightly, revealing a vast, organized realm where the entire cosmos was calibrated and set into perfect motion. This was Muziloth, the great mechanism where time, seasons, and all celestial movements were decreed and regulated. Before him stood colossal, shimmering storehouses containing the captive forces of nature. Vaults of lightning, bound winds, and immense reservoirs of snow, hail, and rain, restrained only by divine command. 1 Enoch 41:1-2. Above them, 12 immense celestial gates glowed with ethereal, brilliant light. As they slowly opened, the constellations emerged, moving with perfect, geometric order, guided by radiant angelic guardians of stellar pathways. Turning to his guide, Enoch asked, "Where do these majestic stars originate?" The angel replied, "From the ninth heaven, the realm of the fixed stars. These gates are their passage to declare the times and seasons of the earth." Enoch stood in profound awe. If even the heavens followed such a precise and powerful divine decree, what greater mysteries lay beyond in the ninth heaven, where the stars themselves were born. The ninth heaven. As Enoch ascended into the ninth heaven, he realized he had reached the true origin of the constellations, the very place from which they were forged before descending into the regulated mechanism of the heavens below. Unlike the celestial realm of the eighth heaven, where the stars merely moved through gates to mark the passage of time, this was Kechavim, the foundational stronghold of the heavens, where the great luminaries had been immovably established since the dawn of creation. All around him, Enoch beheld colossal spheres of burning radiance, far more brilliant than the sun and moon of the lower heavens. The constellations, which had passed through the celestial gates of Muziloth, were not merely wandering entities, but mighty rulers of the cosmic order, each one assigned its specific place and function. 12 mighty constellations, representing the signs of the zodiac, stood arrayed like ancient kings upon a divine, astronomical map. Their unyielding presence dictated the times and seasons of the world below. Between them, immense angelic sentinels moved with solemn, deliberate grace, their robes woven from gathered starlight, their eyes reflecting the boundless, cold depths of the universe. Some stood watch over the ancient, unshifting stars, while others guided newborn luminaries into their destined, calculated places. Turning to his guide one last time, Enoch asked, "Is this the highest of the heavens? Does the journey end here?" The angel replied, "No, for above this vast realm is Erevoth, the 10th heaven, where the Lord of all creation dwells upon his eternal, supreme throne." Enoch's spirit trembled completely, for he knew that beyond this domain lay the final, terrifying ascent, the place where no created being could enter unless summoned directly by the Almighty himself. The 10th heaven. As Enoch ascended into the 10th heaven, all that he had previously known, the vast, stellar constellations of the 9th heaven, the colossal celestial storehouses of the 8th, the myriad angelic hosts of the lower realms, vanished into absolute insignificance. He entered Erevoth, a realm so far beyond human, or even angelic comprehension that even his transformed senses struggled to grasp its very existence. Sight, sound, and the concept of time lost all meaning. It was not a physical location but a state of pure, terrifying divine presence, where even the greatest of angels trembled in unending awe. Here, light did not simply shine. It was existence itself. Sound did not echo. It was woven into the essential structure of reality. It was a domain beyond perception, beyond understanding, where even the highest celestial beings stood in eternal, hushed worship before the one who ruled over all. At the heart of this realm stood the throne of God, vaster than the known universe, radiating a brilliance that no mortal eye could endure, yet a light that no darkness could diminish. Surrounding it were seraphim with wings of living fire, cherubim with countless eyes seeing into eternity, and thrones moving like endless, burning wheels of light. Their voices, immeasurable in cosmic power, seemed as mere whispers before the glorious silence of the one they worshipped. Holy, holy, Holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And before this throne stood Michael, the great archangel, his massive form shining with an unbearable radiant gold. He turned to Enoch and spoke, his voice sounding like the convergence of all creation. Behold, you have been brought before the Lord, the King of Kings, to receive the ultimate secrets of heaven and earth, of time and eternity. But know this, your sacred journey does not end here. Michael then declared the divine will of the Almighty. Enoch would remain perpetually in the presence of God for all eternity, never tasting death. However, before his final total ascension, he was commanded to return to earth one last time to deliver God's specific, dire messages to mankind. Through him, the divine mysteries were to be painstakingly written, the revelations of heaven and the warnings of judgment preserved forever in the book of Enoch. Then, when his task on earth was utterly fulfilled, God would summon him once more, lifting him irrevocably beyond all mortality. No longer a man, he would be spectacularly transformed into Metatron, the highest of all angels, clothed in robes of fire. His entire body would be transmuted into pure celestial light. His form would expand to fill the entire span of the heavens. And upon him, God would bestow 72 wings, each one more radiant than the most brilliant stars, and 365,000 eyes, so that nothing in creation would ever be hidden from his omniscient sight. His voice would echo through the cosmos, and he would sit beside the throne as the scribe of God, the supreme ruler over the celestial hosts, second only to the Almighty himself. Enoch fell to his face, completely overwhelmed and humbled by the final, glorious decree. Though he could not fully comprehend the depth of the glory before him, he knew his destiny had been sealed by the Most High. In Christian tradition, Enoch's ultimate fate often remains a potent mystery. The Bible merely states, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away. Genesis 5 verse 24. Unlike the Book of Enoch, which details his cosmic journey and apotheosis, Christian theology does not confirm his dramatic transformation into Metatron. Instead, he is viewed simply as a man taken into God's presence, his subsequent role left undefined and ambiguous. But in the revelatory Book of Enoch, his destiny was far greater and more defined. He had witnessed all 10 heavens, seen God's blinding glory, and learned the profound secrets of creation and judgment. His final mission was to record these earth-shaking revelations for future generations. For days he wrote tirelessly of the righteous, the wicked, and the catastrophic coming flood. Then his time on earth finally ended. A great, blinding light descended, and before his family's astonished eyes, Enoch was taken once more, forever. Enoch, the man who walked with God, became an eternal witness, forever serving in the highest courts of heaven. If you are fascinated by hidden biblical mysteries and ancient wisdom, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into these extraordinary, ancient texts.